Good morning. Just while we're waiting for the rest of the people to join us, welcome to the latest in our 2024 webinar series. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at the end of the session. Your microphones are muted and cameras are off. There should be time for questions at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to use the chat and ask any as we work our way through. We'll just wait a couple of more minutes, see if there's anybody else joining us. And if there isn't, we will start. So let me take you through today's panel. You have myself, Di. I'm going to be your host. And next up we have Kelsey. Kelsey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Kelsey. I'm BICSc Technical Manager and Youth Ambassador at Youth Employment.
Thank you, Kelsey. And Matt, would you like to present yourself?
Hi, I'm Matt and I'm Digital Marketing Assistant at BICSc and I'm part of the Youth Team.
Thank you, Matt. And up next we have Amelia.
Hi there, I'm Amelia and I am the Assistant Technical Specialist at BICSc and I am also a Youth Ambassador.
Thank you. And last but most certainly not least, our very special guest, LJ, CEO of Youth Employment UK. Over to you.
Thanks, Di. It's great to be here and to have this really important conversation with everyone today around young talent and how we bring it into the industry. And I'm really excited to get started with you all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's get started, and it's over to you, Kelsey.
Okay, hello again everyone. So let's talk about youth employment in the cleaning industry. As we know, following the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen a definite plateau in the onboarding of cleaning professionals. As an industry, we've made great strides in trying to welcome that next generation with offerings of careers in cleaning and facility management. But we need to look at more different ways that we can actually try and get people in and sort of review where we're at and what we're doing to see if we can change the way that we're actually doing things. So today, we're going to start off with an update on the Youth Voice Census. That's provided by Youth Employment UK, and we're going to use the 2023 one just because we're eagerly waiting for the new results to come out in September. Then we're going to look about a year on and 2 years on, what we've done as an industry to actually try and welcome that next generation. We're going to look at the plans for the future, how successful they may be, how we can change things along the way, and then what we can do where we may need to change things. So now it's over to Amelia to go through the Youth Voice Census results from 2023.
So as Kelsey just said, the best ways to understand the future of the cleaning industry is to understand who the future generation are, how they're feeling, what they have been through, what do they have to offer, what they don't understand, and what they want. In previous talks that BICSc have done around youth employment and engagement, we have found that utilising the Youth Voice Census as provided by Youth Employment UK gives us invaluable information on the next generation. So to understand how to onboard the future of cleaning, let's see who we are trying to onboard. Before I go into the Youth Voice Census results of 2023, please find a QR code on the screen that will directly take you to the 2023 report. Okay. So the Youth Voice Census is the biggest collection of youth voice in the insight in the UK. In fact, in 2023, 4,276 young people answered the census. It provides a unique understanding of the experiences young people are having in systems and around them. The results we are showing here are from 2023, but watch this space. Youth Employment UK are set to launch their new census results in September. The ages of the young people that answer the census questions range from 11 to 30 years old. This gives us great data set and allowance to acknowledge the challenges young people are facing at all stages of their lives. In all stages, we can see different age groups and their feelings about education, training, or employment they are receiving, whether that's in mainstream or homeschool education. For example, their physical and mental well-being in the workplace, opportunities they have. We can gauge on their feelings for the future change we want to make. In last year's report, there were 4 key findings. Young people felt disaffected and disconnected. Disconnected from the society in which they live, disaffected in the systems that they are put through, and where they are respondent was in employment. Disconnected from the rest of the workforce. Catching up. As we move on to a world after COVID, we must not forget the challenges that are faced by all different people. In this sense, we must think about the youth and the ways that the youth have been impacted. Education systems changed or not readily available. A political landscape completely unfamiliar and uncharted, and a job market rife now and heavier competition, as well as established professionals look. For more elementary positions in the job market crashes of a post-pandemic landscape. 3, facing their future. Many young people are finding difficulty with facing life outside of education, not knowing how to navigate through or find their paths. What are they doing to support this? And quality of work. There is much higher focus on the quality of work that young people have. We commonly speak about ESG in the business world. Young people are thinking the same. It is important that we understand how drastic the changes we need to make are as onboarding industry professionals. So to put this more into perspective, I am now inviting LJ, CEO of Youth Employment UK, to talk through these findings. Who better? Over to you, LJ.
Amazing. Thanks, Amelia. And I guess what I just might preface that with is the 2023 Youth Voice Census was against a backdrop in 2022, where we really heard young people talk about this mental health crisis, this anxiety that they were facing and that they were feeling. COVID, lots of people now sort of trying to avoid talking about COVID or feel that we've moved on from COVID. But actually, for many of the young people, particularly those who or in our demographic for the census, they were transitioning between different stages of their education journey or transitioning from education into employment during that pandemic. And so the impact of them, particularly on those key developmental stages and ages, is really sort of borne out in kind of exacerbating the mental health crisis. I think also it exacerbated some of the gaps that we see within kind of communities and the levels of disadvantage between those that have and those that have not. So when we came to the 2023 Youth Voice Census, which was the 6th census that we've done, it was really clear to see that actually by not seeing change around where they live, their education experiences, their opportunities, it was creating this sense of disaffected and feeling of being disconnected, just as Amelia said. So young people were really starting to tell us in the free text commentary that actually life doesn't feel very good as a young person because nothing has changed from the previous year and the previous years where they were kind of in the crisis of the pandemic. So the mental health issues are really still very prominent, and we expect to see that prominence in this year's Youth Voice Census. So 3 years on from when we really heard it at its peak, nothing has changed. There isn't more medical support. There isn't more early engagement with young people. There isn't more training in our schools to support mental health and the way that young people feel and communicate. There isn't more positivity around their well-being. So you can absolutely see how the growth of that is just going to continue to spiral if we don't start addressing some of the systemic issues around mental health and anxiety. So it's a real big factor that we are dealing with, and it plays out in a few ways. I think we're certainly seeing it in education, where the number of attendances young people are reporting on is lower than it's ever been. So there's fewer young people attending school, choosing to elect out of school and elect out of mainstream education. but also we're seeing a rise in economic inactivity. So that is the number of people who are not seeking work and not in education, employment or training. So it's slightly different to the unemployment number that the DWP report on, because it reflects on those who are not looking for work, whereas the unemployment number is the figure of people who are ready and looking for work. So that growing economic inactivity is a real problem, and it's quite a problem for your sector, and it's why I've always been so impressed by the charge from the team in trying to address some of these big issues, because actually the more or the less young people there are in the labour market, the harder it is to engage that cohort, the harder it is to ensure that you've got the right pathways for them. And if you don't understand that, and if you're not part of some of the solutions here, you're going to really struggle in the years ahead to get the workforce that you need, and to build that training, and to build that capital in the workforce that you need for kind of the future growth and projections of your industry. So whatever the industry, this is quite a problem that we have such high levels of economic inactivity. So the mental health issue is really, really important backdrop to all of this. It has such a bearing on the choices young people are making and the next steps that they take. But interestingly and worryingly, last year, so this census was run from March to June last year, safety was a real issue for lots of young people. Where they live, they do not feel safe in their communities. And actually, when we think about the last 12 months, or even just the last 12 weeks, we could probably expect to see and recognise where young people might not be feeling safe. And this is particularly pertinent for young women and those of a minority ethnic group, or those from the LGBTQ plus community. So those who have more vulnerable characteristics within our communities most definitely report a lack of feeling safe where they live. And young people currently are thinking and changing about their career choices in the last 12 months, where they've seen kind of the pandemic hit sectors, or they've made different education choices, maybe not choosing to go on to university because of the cost of living crisis, and making different choices. Young people are currently in changing their minds to think about, actually, where will I find a job, in a good job that gives me something that I need and means I can afford to do that job and have those future opportunities. So they're rethinking their bigger career plans that they might have had as juniors. The vast majority of respondents with disabilities or struggling with their mental health cite those issues as the reason that they're currently not able to attend work, which is kind of my point around the economic inactivity. And I think this is a real, should have been a real alarm call for us last September, that the rising antisocial behaviour and growing sense of apathy from young people was really having an impact on them. And I think this is kind of where we're seeing that play out in recent months. Next slide, please. Great stuff. My goodness, my eyesight's not that good. I'll lean into my screen just while I have a look at this. This is just, and you can see this throughout the census if you've clicked onto the link, the numbers of young people and kind of the percentages. It's a weighted survey, so these numbers are representative of young people across the UK. And what you can see here in this slide is the top barriers for young people when applying for work. So that anxiety is the absolute top barrier, but actually what might be really interesting, particularly in this conversation, is around travel and location. You know, depending on shift patterns and depending on where young people live at, there can be very limited access to good and safe travel to get to and from work that's reliable and regular and affordable. And that's having a real kind of impact on young people and those choices that they are making. We saw last year that lots of young people were not getting work experience either through their school or actually just not being able to access part-time jobs. You know, the economy really shifted after the pandemic in terms of availability of part-time work for young people. And so we have employers who are expecting work experience, and young people are coming out of education without having had any work experience. There's a real mismatch in what's being offered to young people during their education and the expectation of employers, and it's a huge disconnect. So there's some of the kind of top three issues. And actually for employers, there's things that we can do about those three things. We can really think about how we support young people with that anxiety, how we can create a positive and youth-friendly environment from the job advert that we put out, through to the recruitment practice, through to the hiring and onboarding, there are moments throughout all of those stages where we can really support young people who are perhaps slightly more nervous and anxious about those next steps. We can create an environment that feels safe and good and can encourage them to come into work. The travel and location is something that employers will really need to think about. How does that affect us? What is available to us? Can young people get to work with the shift patterns that we're offering? Do they need support in their first month with bus passes or travel passes so that they don't have to kind of find that money before their payment run? There's lots of things we're seeing employers do in that space. And then, of course, work experience. If you are looking for work experience, if your interview process asks questions that are based on experiences, you're going to discount a lot of young people who can't answer and give you a good example and a good account of themselves if their school had never provided them with that type of opportunity before. So really thinking about, firstly, how you recruit and what skills you absolutely need to identify in the recruitment process. And if you're leaving young people out from that process, rethinking it, but actually also making sure that as an employer, you start to build those relationships with your local schools and that you are offering work experience. If you're going to expect work experience on a future candidate, you're going to need to be in the game in terms of giving them work experience whilst they're still in education. So really thinking about the role employers can play across those top three areas is such an important thing. Thank you. So the catching up bit, of course, we just heard that it was the second key finding. And the reality was nobody caught young people up from COVID. I am a parent to a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old. So my 20-year-old didn't get to do his GCSEs, and my 16-year-old was missed out on kind of the first 2 years of her secondary education because she was in and out of lockdown during those periods. Now, for her, those periods would have been periods where she was developing her more mature relationship and more mature behavioral skills. That kind of is part of the transition when you go to secondary school. Self-managing how you might get to school, navigating the bus, navigating kind of, you know, the getting out of the house on time. Those are sorts of things that actually many young people would have experienced pre-COVID in year 7 and year 8 that were taken away from those children. And so catching up on some of those behavioral things just never really happened. And we're hearing from quite a few employers who talk about levels of maturity from new cohorts coming through. Often I think it's because of what they missed out on in terms of that socialization and those opportunities to grow and develop where they were in lockdown, and we just haven't been able to kind of move those young people on in a different way. So the fact is that the personal kind of development stuff didn't happen, as well as some of the education stuff that didn't happen. And you can kind of see this, you know, we have GCSE results last week where in the West Midlands, 4 out of 10 young people weren't achieving English and maths, and they would have been the students and young people transitioning from primary into a very different curriculum in secondary and missing out on kind of that really thorough in-class teaching in year 7 and year 8, which builds the foundations for taking qualifications GCSEs in year 11. So nothing was caught up, and we can't forget that when we're thinking about the behaviours and the needs of young people, including, as I've talked about quite a bit, the work experience, but also lots of youth clubs shut down and haven't reopened because actually they lost funding, they lost the opportunity to kind of be out in the community. Lots of provision for young people that gave them opportunities outside of education to build their skills and to build their relationships and to build their kind of sense of belonging and community were all closed during COVID and haven't necessarily reopened. But actually young people now, after 2 years of lockdown, engage very differently and are more nervous about going and accessing those types of activities than they've ever been before. So all of that kind of surmounts to kind of some of the challenges that I think we can now see post the COVID world that we're in. Next slide, please. And just a couple of the quotes from some of the young people that took part in the census. You know, there was opportunities that they would have liked to have done short work experience or have more personalised support from somebody at school who could help them. You can see there the comments around more mental health support, even for those that don't present with mental health needs. Actually managing stress, managing your emotions is a difficult thing for all of us to do. And I'm still regulating mine, and I'm in my 40s. But actually we're not teaching young people the skills to do that. And if they don't live within families where that's a conversation that is regularly happening, they are struggling to manage themselves and to regulate and recognize whether they have got challenges and issues. So there's quite a lot that young people were asking for within the census last year. Next slide, please. So you can kind of build that picture, being in year 7, year 8 through COVID, or years 10 and 11, wherever these young people were during COVID, and the kind of sense of the opportunities that were taken away from them during that time, and how then they are feeling about opportunity now and facing their future. I think one of the real worrying issues for me is that the lack of confidence young people have in finding a good job where they live. And I, though this is last year's data, I think it's the same situation, if not worse. I'm not privy to this year's analysis yet. I'm getting my full briefing tomorrow, so they didn't want me to give any secrets away, Kelsey. So they're not letting me have it until tomorrow. But actually, when the A-level results came out 2 weeks ago, A-level results are obviously a level 3 exam, so we would have had students completing A-levels, but also students completing level 3 BTEC qualifications, etc. I Googled, I'm based in Kettering in Northamptonshire. It was a town with 5 secondary schools and 1 very big college. So we would have had around about 700 students finish their level 3 qualifications this summer and get their exams 2 weeks ago. So that day, I put into the search and the government's Find an Apprenticeship website, and I searched for how many apprenticeship vacancies there were in Kettering in Northamptonshire. So 700 students finishing level 3 exams. I don't know, actually, let's test to see who's still awake this morning and get you to put in the chat. Let's have a bit of a guess. Who can get closest to the number of apprenticeship vacancies on offer 2 weeks ago on the day that students received their A-level and BTEC level results? Excellent, Sarah. You get a prize just for being first. Let's go. How many do you think there were? Quite low numbers coming through. Well done, Catherine. Oh, John is optimistic about Kettering. Have you ever been, John? Let's keep them coming. I'll give you 10 more seconds to put in an answer. Kelsey, you lot, I expect you, just because you're presenting today doesn't mean to say you don't play my game. Have you put one in?
I did actually, so.
Okay, good. Your name didn't come up here. All right, I'll let you off. Okay, so the big answer is, the big reveal, there were 39 apprenticeship vacancies 2 weeks ago on the day that our students in Kettering finished their level 3 or got their level 3 exams. Those 39 apprenticeship vacancies were at level 2 and level 3. Now, bearing in mind, this cohort were actually all completing level 3 qualifications, so they wouldn't necessarily be looking for level 2 or level 3. They'd be looking for level 4 plus. I was horrified even more to see that one of the level 2 one of the level 2 apprenticeships, I won't name and shame the industry, but it wasn't yours, was offering a salary of £10,500 for a level 2 apprenticeship. Simply unacceptable. That's actually below the minimum apprenticeship rate now. But actually, why would our young people want to go and do apprenticeships with the quality on offer like that? And so you can see why young people genuinely can't see where the opportunities are where they live, when the government's own Find an Apprenticeship website was advertising 39 level 3 or below medium to poor quality apprenticeships. That means those 700 students who are completing are probably going to have to go on to university because there isn't a viable alternative for them. So they're going to have to do something. They absolutely will be encouraged to be staying on in some form of education or training at 18. So therefore, they were most likely going to go and look to see what the apprenticeship, what the university options were. And isn't that just the saddest thing? Because apprenticeships are brilliant and apprenticeships are brilliant for young people, and yet we just don't have enough in the local economies, particularly in the smaller towns, to attract and to retain our young people into work in the local places. And then this is a testament here. Only 1 in 3 young people think employers are supportive of hiring them. Is it any wonder when you see sort of the quality that's being put out and advertised for young people? So some real challenges in that mismatch and what's available. And so far, none of this is the young person's fault. And I think that's a really important story. We need to make sure that we're not blaming young people for the situations that they're in. They don't write the curriculum. They don't design the school system, and they certainly don't influence employers' kind of employment behaviour and hiring behaviour. So actually, this is a system that is done to young people, not the other way around. But often that disaffectedness that we see in their behaviour is something that we blame them for, and it's something that I feel really kind of egregious for them on their behalf. So the next slide, please, and the final kind of set of key this kind of links to the being able to find a career. So actually, when you think about the few maybe really good apprenticeships that might be available, or the few really good opportunities that might be available, when you've had no work experience or when you've had no engagement with employers through your secondary education, you can understand why very few young people think they understand what skills employers are looking for, where they don't feel so confident that they know who employers are and what they want from them. Next slide, please. And then I'll speed through this, but this is the final piece. What was the good news in the census? And lots of it isn't great news, to be honest, for us, because, you know, the systems don't change around young people. In fact, my daughter, who has just finished her GCSEs, and my goodness, I'm so grateful she passed English and maths, because the retake experience for our young people in this country is appalling. If you don't get English and maths first time, you almost can't move on to anything else. And so you have to go into that retake cycle, and more young people fail that retake cycle. I had an email from a former ambassador last week who, in desperation, reached out to me. We hadn't connected for about 3 years. Her sister now has done 3 years worth of retakes, each and every time getting a level 3 grade, which means she cannot move on to an apprenticeship, not even a level 2 apprenticeship, because most of those employers are requiring English and maths passes. So she cannot move out of the education and into work because she can't pass that. She has got she's neurodiverse with dyscalculia. So actually, for a young person with dyscalculia, completing your maths GCSE is almost impossible, right? So what are we doing to these young people? So really important factor about the retake piece. But anyway, my daughter was really lucky, or worked hard enough, that she managed to pass everything, and I was thrilled about that, because as I say, I understand the trauma of retakes. But I think what's really interesting to point out is my daughter went to the same secondary school as I did. I left school, let's say just because we're friends, 25 years ago, I did my GCSEs. My daughter studied the same 2 English textbooks that I studied 25 years ago. So an Inspector Calls and Romeo and Juliet. So when we're expecting different from young people, we really have to question what difference there is in the system to expect different. And so really important that we find ways to get young people into work, because actually when they are in work, apprentices out of all of our young people are the happiest. When you're in a good quality apprenticeship, whoever you are as a young person, you are happier than anybody in education, at college, at university, or in work without an apprenticeship. So that apprenticeship journey is so important, because it's where there's pastoral care, there's a bit more TLC, there's a bit more support for that young person, and so they can thrive within those environments. Whereas if you're not in an apprenticeship and you're in a full-time job, I'm not looking at you here, Kelsey, but well-being was down in young people. You live your best life and have the best job, but quite a lot of responsibility that is really interesting, because lots of young people are telling us that they're getting more responsibility, not the recognition or the support. So actually their well-being was down last year, and they're having struggles to access kind of support around things like their own anxiety and sort of challenges that they might have, including, as you'll see here, that most impacted are those young people who are transgender, free school meals, or with additional needs, and gay and lesbian respondents. For those young people, actually finding good quality jobs almost seems impossible to those young people. So it's a mix out there, but it's not a great one unless you're an apprentice. Next slide, please. And I think the last one from me, just some of our recommendations then as we talk to government, and we do here at Youth Employment UK, part of my job is to make sure that employers are hearing this, so that actually with this data, just as Kelsey and Amelia said at the head of this, with this data, you can make changes. You can create those opportunities that are really good, that really help young people thrive and live fulfilling and brilliant careers with you and beyond. So a part of our work here is to ensure that employers understand where young people are at and can make those adaptations so that actually it works for everybody, but also to ensure that government are thinking about how we commit to reducing youth unemployment and ensuring there are good pathways for all young people. So we continue to do that in lots of guises. And I think that's me done, Kels.
It is. Thank you so much. I've been going through the census results for the past 2 years when I've been talking about youth employment within the industry. And it doesn't matter, like, however it's ever put out or said or read, whenever we put it into articles or anything like that, it's just some of the stats are like, they're horrific. Especially when, like, myself and Amelia and like did the census this year. We're within that age group. I did it the year before. And the questions are amazing, but you don't think that people are going to answer them differently to how you have. And you're right before, I would say I know many people my age, including myself, that are very lucky to be in positions of employment where they feel happy in their job, safe in their job, and have had that quality of work. But I know that we've all probably had times as well where we have felt like we're part of those respondents previous to our current employment. So I always find it so amazing to work from that, and that's what we have worked from in the past 2 years, looking at where young people are and how we can actually maybe not even always change what we're doing in the industry, but actually show what we're doing, because we're very good at doing these things, but maybe not very good at promoting the work that we do that actually aligns itself quite nicely with where the generation are. And obviously alongside that, we need to think about our own industry itself and the young people that we actually have inside. We want to welcome the next generation, but we also want to retain the young generation that we have, and make sure that we're giving them ample opportunities. And it's brilliant to look outside of the industry at the generation, what they're all experiencing. But we also need to see just how different the generation that we've got, the young generation we've got within the industry actually is. So at BICSc, we're actually very fortunate to say that 22% of our workforce are under the age of 27. That age goes up every time I do one of these speeches, because I get older. So we're looking at our age groups, and we have 3 people under that age group from BICSc on today's call: myself, Amelia, and Matt. So I thought it'd be really cool just to have a look at like what our industry is looking at. Just for some background before they go into it themselves, myself, Amelia, and Matt have different jobs in the industry, very different roles, and have come in different ways, have different experiences before. And even though this is only a very small snippet of what the young professionals look like in our industry, it's still a snippet to look at, and to look at the journeys that people come on, maybe the decisions that were made along the way, and how transferable some unlikely skills have been to be able to join the industry. So I'm doing very well at passing things over this morning, so I don't have to speak for a while. I'm going to take another sip of my coffee, and I'm going to pass on to Amelia.
Hi guys, me again. So for me, ever since a young age, I was determined, have loved theatre. Theatre is my greatest passion. I adore it. As you can see me demonstrating, gesticulating on a couch. So at primary school, high school, I always did school plays. That was me. And I knew I initially didn't want to go to university. I was determined. I was like, I don't want to go to uni. I don't want to do it. But I didn't know what else to do. So that's how I ended up at university. And I did my degree in acting for touring theatre. And then, like many people during the pandemic, my life kind of came to a halt. All these plans I had, I thought about creating my own theatre company, teaming up with a friend. It came to a halt. And I got a job at Costa. And again, There wasn't much career path, but I didn't even know how to get this job at Costa. I didn't even know how to write a CV. Never been taught it in school, had no idea what I was doing. So I actually went to the job centre and said to them, I've no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me write a CV? And they were like, yeah, of course we can. We'll help you, which is how I got my job at Costa. Initially, I didn't know any other step with regards to university. My own school didn't supply much support with what else was out there. And I actually went to a different college and asked their sort of career advisor, and he put me on the path of university. So after the pandemic, that's kind of when I got into the cleaning industry, and I missed performing, always miss it. And again, the only path for me that was available was manager, manager, manager. I don't want to be a manager, never wanted to be a manager. But then I felt kind of trapped. I had no idea what else to do until my training coordinator, I'll not call him a manager because he will dislike me greatly for that. But my training coordinator kind of put me on the path of training. And that's when I was introduced to BICSc. Now, of course, like many people, my life hasn't gone how I planned it, but I'm glad it's gone in the direction it has. And what I love most about this job, especially with regards to training, is that a lot of people think, well, you just wasted your degree. Well, no, I haven't. Because like it says, demonstrating in a cleaning cupboard, I changed my stage. I still perform. Even now I'm semi-performing. I've just changed who I perform to and what I perform. All the skills I learned about not being able to talk, that's what I learned. No, all the skills I learned about projecting, communicating, listening, those pauses is all still valid in training and what I do now. So yeah, it's not what I planned, but I definitely don't feel like I've wasted my degree or wasted the years in education. But yeah, that's my story.
Fab, thanks for that, Amelia. Matt, you're up next. I'm getting out of this as long as I can.
So I always knew that I wanted to go to uni. Throughout college, it was always a decision that I had made. So I had the idea of wanting to go into advertising. So I focused my college education and my uni education around that. But it wasn't until university that I focused on social media advertising. But I was also in the fortunate position that I was able to transfer within a company that I worked for in college to my university area. And that was in a private hospital. So I'm similar to Kelsey, I have a healthcare background, but it's very different. I worked in the warehouse. So I handled deliveries and all that sort of stuff. So it was very far from what I actually wanted to do, but it got me through. But I actually wasn't allowed to work during COVID. So again, like Amelia, I was put on pause. My university didn't know what they were going to do in terms of teaching. So I was kind of stuck. But working in the hospital, it eventually led to an opportunity to do some work for the marketing team, which I then also included in my university degree. So this included maintaining their website, and I also made like a draft social campaign for self-pay and private healthcare. And I do believe that without that experience, I probably wouldn't have got this job at BICSc or anything like that, because it is included on my CV. So very fortunate in that regard.
Fab, Matt, thank you. Even I learned something then. I didn't know all of that. And now I will actually. It's on to me, isn't it? So I have my backstory before BICSc is sort of a familiar tale, I think, for a lot of people. So The issue that I found across a lot of the experiences of young people is that people are either put into the camp of being academic or practical learners. And if you do well in one thing, that's what you get pushed, that's the route you get pushed down. So I did well at school, you get pushed down the academic route, you go to sixth form, you do A levels, you go to uni, and the whole time it's just sort of like, you're young, you don't really understand what's going on, you accept things. All I knew what I wanted to do was that I wanted to have a job where I'd take information, make it more accessible to people, where I'd be able to travel because that's what everybody wants to do. When you're that age, everybody wants a job where you're all around the world. I wanted to be happy in my role. I wanted to do something that felt morally right and that would make a difference. You know, a pretty tall order at 16 when you're also expecting to be earning hundreds of thousands a year. So I went to university. That was what I was told the best route was, sort of muddled my way through all of that. I ended up finishing my master's degree just before COVID introduced itself to the world. I studied at Edinburgh. You can see it on the screen. Not as nice as Matt's amazing graduation photo. Mine is a celebratory drink in the air. Just happy that it was all over and done with. Following that, to help pay for my degrees and throughout uni, both in my master's and my undergrad, I took a job in the cleaning industry within healthcare, which is the not so lovely picture on the right hand side. And what I found was that I learned so much and enjoyed that practical role so much throughout my journey. But all I'd ever been told was that I needed something academic and that the route that I should probably take is teaching or something like that, which, if anybody's met me, I love training, but teaching is not a bit of me. I've not got the patience, I guess, with the younger people. I like somebody to be on my level that I can have a chat with. So I carried on at the hospital in more of a training role, compliance role, after I'd done the cleaning and things like that. And then it was actually, I was lucky enough to speak to somebody within the industry that basically sat me down and said, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing with your life? You know, I've heard you've got this, I've heard you've got that. And I said, I've always wanted a job that means that I can, you know, make information accessible. There might be an element of travel, but I don't want to stop learning. But I'm pretty sure that the standard education route is not for me. I finished my master's. I'm a bit sick of all of that. I've lost the love for learning, but I'm enjoying learning more practical side of things. And if it wasn't for that person telling me that there were opportunities available in different industries and that you don't just have to follow a direct route, that all of those tenets of the job that you want are available in different careers, I wouldn't have been where I am now. So, as you can see now, I'm now at BICSc. I've been here for 3 years now, and it's going really well. But it was hard finding that position, that voice that I had when you're told to go a particular way. So it's not necessarily always the case that young people don't want to join certain industries, is that they're not aware of the careers that we actually have available. And that was why I wanted to start this movement a couple of years ago with the help of the amazing youth team at BICSc and Youth Employment UK, was that I wanted to talk about how we are one industry, sometimes not recognised as that, sometimes recognised as a different part of other industries, but I wanted to talk about the infinite opportunities that we have available. That yes, the most important role, and I will always stand by this, is the role of the cleaning operative, of the supervisor. However, there are so many roles that people can come into within the industry that makes them, it doesn't mean that they're not part of the industry just because they're not stood with a mop or a cloth or a scrubber dryer, but they're still in it. And there's ways that we can introduce the younger generation or introduce people into those roles where they have full career paths going through. So can I have the next slide? Is that okay? So it's clear that we want more youth in the industry, but we need to look at what we're doing to help and what we have done. So as I said before, my little catchphrase is one industry, infinite opportunity. And we've made huge wage as BICSc and as the industry to try and welcome the next generation. But in order to look where we're going, we need to look at what we've done and see if we can change anything or if we can stand on the shoulders of what we've done so far. So there's been some lessons along the way. I mean, the first lesson that I learned whilst doing this is that everything we thought we knew, we need to throw it out the window and be prepared to listen to young people. Myself, Amelia, Matt, and the other Matt at BICSc are all quite close to the age of us leaving education, at least in the formal sense. And I will tell you now, the amount of things that you forget or the way that the education system changes means that we don't always understand the experience of young people now. So we might have a bit of a better understanding, but we need to be able to say, hey, do you know what? I'm not sure what's going on. Let's look at the census results. Let's research and let's actually ask young people. So what you're going to see in the next few slides is those youth voice census results again, how we've utilised them and moved on from it. So taking lessons from young people and changing the way that we try and push careers in the clean industry. So Matt, over to you.
So let's start off with the most important source, the young people and their views. You can see from the diagram on the slide that the youth employment census shows that young people are most likely to go to parents or guardians, their teachers, or even friends. We can see that by utilising the research that that people do go to their parents about their careers. Now, I don't know about you, but parents, especially my parents, they very rarely understand the job that you do, and I have questions and don't tend to understand those answers that you give them. And I know that, along with other BICSc Youth members, that the cleaning industry isn't one that they would have thought of or been keen for us to join. So to tackle this, what did we do? Can I have the next slide? Well, we got in front of the parents, we got in front of the guardians and the teachers. If these people are the source of the career advice that is used by young people, we need to ensure that they understand the opportunities that are available. In 2022 and 2023, we had a member of our youth team speak on those youth webinars, targeted at those parents and guardians around the careers offered in the cleaning industry and the opportunities available. We attended career days, whereby the guardians and teachers were able to ask on career paths how to instruct their young people that may be coming to them for advice, how to successfully apply for jobs, and where they may be able to get those qualifications that may help them. This led to direct emails coming to the institute around careers available, and parents emailing asking where they could find work experience for their young people and what route they could take. So when Kelsey did her first ever talk around youth employment in the cleaning industry, she was met with some constructive questions from the professionals. In addition to the voice of young people, it is imperative that we listen to those and to the needs of the industry. Some of the constructive feedback raised is shown on the screen. So we should not only think about the experience of a university leaver, we need to think about how other young people may be entering the industry that hasn't gone to uni. And we also need to focus on age groups other than 18-year-olds, as younger people may be wanting to start their career. So we listened and we answered. After hearing both Sam and Kelsey, their 4 hours of teaching hand hygiene to 45-year-olds and cleaning inspections to 60 10-year-olds, you can tell that we definitely broke out of the 18-year-old route. You can see from the pictures that I think it went quite well. So in addition to sharing the cleaning industry with people from 5, we also made sure that they understood other routes that young people can go through by becoming T-level ambassadors, attending career fairs in all different demographic areas to understand funding that students face in different areas and differing levels of schools, from private to academy to externally funded. Also, speaking with the Department of Education officials around paths into the industry and what early qualifications can equate to higher education levels, such as those apprenticeships and industry placements that we spoke about earlier. We've also spoken on the radio about the opportunities our industry has, which concluded in schools getting in contact to discuss routes forward into the cleaning industry. And we even made appearances on national television to aid young people into the industry and through a business setup. So looking back at the Young Voice census, a statistic we found very alarming was around the barriers that young people feel that they face in regards to applying for work. We also touched on this earlier. You can see that anxiety is over 50%. As we want young people to continue to apply to our uni, we need to ensure that we try and remove or at least help young people to defeat those barriers. You can also see that depression is quite high. So this is something that we need to work on as an industry. So let's see what happened. With thanks to the Youth Employment UK, BICSc were able to attend the APBG for youth employment, looking at mental health for young workers. And we were able to talk around the industry, the pressures that the industry has faced, and to help lobby for change. We have also been present on the Youth Voice Forum webinars around mental health and wellbeing, helping to talk to employers around what to look for in aid to young people. At BICSc, we've also introduced over 10 mental health first aiders, and we are one of many in the industry to have done this. We offer this support, and we do need to shout about it, that it is on offer. To continue talking through the advances made, Amelia is going to join us again and talk through the other ways that the industry has moved forward, and as work continues to grow and as we reach more young people. So over to you, Amelia.
Thank you, Matt. In the Youth Voice census, it was shared that young people suffering with a lack of support for being neurodiverse in the workplace, where reasonable adjustments were not made, they felt that they could not seek support. So we listened, we answered. A member of our youth team joined youth-led events for employers and talked about the barriers around neurodiversity, but also discussed ways in which employers could help make changes. Following this, at BICSc, we have ensured that members of the team have been trained in neurodiversity, understanding, and have adapted tools for the way forward to ensure we make small changes to make the work environment a more enjoyable and accessible place for those who consider themselves to be neurodiverse. For example, a small change that we have created is a change in the way that we present information we give out. Here, for example, we have changed the background, font size, and layouts. We adapt as this is considered to be a more neurodiverse, friendly way of presenting. So let's look at the industry. This time last year, cleaning professionals said, there is currently no apprenticeship scheme for the sector which provides training in the technical skills needed by cleaning and hygiene operatives working outside healthcare. This leaves many cleaning and hygiene sector employers with no suitable option for investing apprenticeship levy funds in training staff. In addition to this, we can see that there was an interest, with around 50% of census respondents answering that they were neutral, likely, and very likely to undertake an apprenticeship. With an addition, 8.8% of young people currently in apprenticeships undertaking a level 2 and 52.6% undertaking a level 3. The industry listened and the industry answered. In January 2024, the BCC were thrilled, alongside the industry, to announce the approval for the Cleaning Hygiene Operative Apprenticeship. This meant that a Level 2 apprenticeship was available for those that clean within healthcare and within commercial settings, meaning that yet another way of welcoming the next generation was available. Elsie.
Thank you. So we've got all of those things that we've done in the last 2 years, but yet, whilst we're looking again at these census results, we need to think about the ways in which people are looking for jobs. So where respondents actually had a career or a job, one of the questions asked where they found out about the job. And the top one, as we can see, was they found it on a job board: Indeed, Monster, GMFJ, which is Get My First Job, and Youth Employment UK. That's 26.3%, and all of the other percentages are through like social media, employers, family, friends, things like that. I've said this a million times when I do these speeches, but I can't tell you how heartbreaking it is as a young person that joined LinkedIn 18 months ago, how heartbreaking it is to see careers advertised on LinkedIn for maybe entry-level roles or different roles that would suit a younger person coming into the industry, or we see them sent out with industry magazines. I am by no means saying that these are not or could not be successful, but they are not the most successful way of onboarding young people. In order to get the young people we want, we need to be present where they are. Now, as much as I would love to see some of the leaders of the industry doing TikTok dances and getting ready to share the industry through Instagram Reels or whatever else, ways that we can do this is by getting on job boards where young people are. So brilliant that we're on Indeed, Monster, Read, Get My First Job in some cases, but we need to be on places like Youth Employment UK where these young people are going. So next slide, please. In the same theme, I get to say it this time. So we've listened and we've answered. Next slide, please. In December 2023, so not so long ago, what we've done is we've launched the Cleaning Industry Careers Guide. And this is available on Youth Employment UK. Now, how I normally refer to this is the one-stop job shop. So essentially what it is it's information about the cleaning industry written by the cleaning industry. Many times what we get is we get people talking about our industry, the jobs that we have available, when they've never actually worked in it. So what we wanted is we wanted information that was accessible to young people, both in the way that it's written and in the place that it is, but actually written by industry professionals. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly. It's a whistle-stop tour of our one-stop job shop. So we're going to the next slide. Okay, so Amelia and myself both created careers guides for the cleaning industry. So it would only be right if Amelia spoke to you about these because she painstakingly researched every single job type and spoke to people.
Yes, it was certainly my life and certainly gave me a few new interesting ideas for job progression. I'm joking. So on the page are 25 plus career guides that link to all different parts of the cleaning industry, from chemical engineers to cleaning operatives to compliance assurance roles. We wanted to ensure that there were a true representation of the cleaning industry and the careers we have available present on the page. And I'm not just saying this, I even was like, I didn't know that was a job. Like, it opened my eyes as well, even when I was researching this. So it was not only imperative that they were written to welcome new people, but also imperative that people already in the industry could look at a career progression plan. So on the screen is a small snippet of what the cleaning careers involve. I highly suggest that you take a look on the pages and see for yourself. Please do that. So we have created career guides that explain all about each role. So namely what the job involves, what skills the job require, training available, pre and post job application that may help, where to look out for the roles, advantages to each of the roles, the career progression, LMI job trends for each job role, and how much is realistic to earn. So with video content and pictorial content for these that prefer to learn in a different method.
So I'm very thankful that Kelsey included my job on this slide. Thank you for that. The digital projects team at BICSc actually filmed and edited all of the videos sent in from young people for these jobs that Amelia has painstakingly researched. So this also offered a visual aid and gave a face to the professionals that were in these jobs that young people can actually relate to. We told our stories and we explained what we loved about the industry, our backgrounds and the role that we play within the industries. These stories can help put the careers we offer into perspective so that young people have the information in an accessible way and a way that they, more importantly, understand.
We included sections of career tips and opportunities. You know, before I joined the industry, I had no idea that there were magazines out there around this industry giving top tips, advice, and innovations that we have. So we've included links to those articles, information on the future, you know, with chartered practitioner, routes that they can go in for the future as a way forward. If we go on to the next slide. We also have your stories. So people that have shared their stories through BICSc or through other means are all on there. Obviously, it's important that we share young people explaining about their jobs, but also people's careers. So for example, there's stories on there where people have started as an admin assistant and are now business managers, people as cleaning operatives, working all the way up to CEO. Because it's important that we show career progression that is available in the industry, but also all of the different routes that we can take. I think the stories on there's over 40, so they can click through. These are also linked to the different careers that we spoke about before. So if I go on, I'm interested in a job in auditing, I can have a look through the LMI job trends, all of the information, skills that I want, skills to add to CV, free training that's available, and then look into somebody's story that's actually done the same thing to see what I might want to do after I go for that job. We go on to the next slide. Again, links to free training courses that are industry courses. So the idea is they go in, they get certificated on them, and then they can add them to their CV should they want to apply for a job. Which brings me very nicely onto the final part of this, which is the good youth-friendly employers that are available. Now, the idea of a one-stop job shop is that we give people the information about the industries that we have available. They read it, they're enthralled by it, excited by it, and then they actually apply for the jobs that we have available. Now, in order to be a youth-friendly employer, you need to have membership with Youth Employment UK. And what that will do is it gives you loads of benefits, which LJ is going to go through with you all in a minute, but it also links you to this page. So if somebody finds the role of a cleaning operative job, they're interested, they've done the free training, they've uploaded their CV, they've updated their CV, they're all ready to go, excited for their career in cleaning, there needs to be jobs available for them to apply for at the end of it. And what this does is we can see on there we have Sodexo and Surrey Council on there because they're already members, is that they can then apply for those roles. They're there and they're linked together, and it forms that one industry infinite opportunity. So if we could go on to the next slide. We've got plans for the future. Obviously, the plans include updating these things and getting more people involved with being good youth-friendly employers. Next slide, if that's okay. But we need to think about the accessibility of ourselves. So where are we advertising? Are we advertising through LinkedIn? Are 18-year-olds going to be able to, are they on that? You know, like I said before, I only joined a year and a half ago. What language are we speaking? That doesn't mean what different language country-wise, but what are we speaking the same language? Are we putting all of those technical jargon terms in there that young people don't understand? Is it imperative that somebody at the age of 18 understands what COSH stands for? Or is that something we can train them when they start their job? Or is there somewhere we could direct them to get that training? Why are we ignoring certain groups of young people? I've had it said to me so many times that as a university leaver, I think more about the university route, which is not true, but is easier for me to think of because that's my experience. However, it seems that we ignore certain groups or certain job types that we have, thinking that that isn't necessarily part of the industry, but it is, and it is the next generation. We need to think about the kind of events we're attending, what schools are we going to, what young people are we bringing in, are we getting the right groups of young people, or are we going after people that are on a completely separate plan? And what age groups are we talking to? From experience, I would highly suggest that it can be quite harrowing to spend 5 hours doing hand hygiene with 5-year-olds. However, have I walked away with 50 new cleaning operatives? No, maybe hopefully in 12 years. But if we think about where they are, the decisions we're making, and even what time of year we're talking to these people, we can have great impact on both of their job aspects and prospects and for ourselves. And have we thought about going towards the charities that work with young people or outreach work, where there are young people that are struggling to create a job for themselves or are in unsafe living situations where we can actually help? Next slide, please. So yeah, like I've just said, we need to understand the diverse career opportunities that we have. It's not only cleaning operatives and supervisors, there's so much more. And we need to understand the pathways that young people are coming in on. We need to think about qualification succession. So if they are doing the amazing level 2 apprenticeships, what could we offer them after that? What work placements could we offer them? And could we offer them industry study? Where we talked about work placement and industry study, what could we offer ourselves? We need to think about all that free training that's available out there that we can push people towards. Next slide, please. So yeah, there we go. To sum up, where are we advertising? Why are we ignoring certain groups of young people? What events are we attending? Do we actually know what good practice is? We all have our own ideas of what young people are facing or what might be best, but how can we get that? So I'm now going to pass back to LJ. I can't see her face, so I'm hoping she's still here. To talk about the Good Youth Employment Benchmark and how we can actually check ourselves.
Of course, I'm still here. I just didn't want to distract away from you three brilliant young people. You've done such an incredible job today. I know you are super professionals, but I was just thinking that I want to get my marketing team to take snippets of this webinar today and put it across all of our social channels with some of the insights you guys have shared. So thank you. And I think it's just really powerful to hear young people talking about their peers and sharing their experiences. With that insight, we can all do better by our young people in our communities. Now, I know we've run over time, so I'm just going to quickly share a couple of highlights here and make my contact details available to you in the chat once I've done, should you need any more information. So as Kelsey said, we are a membership organisation at Youth Employment UK. We're a not-for-profit, so actually our membership and the work that we do with employers also funds the work then that we do for free with young people and our policy influencing work. So it's a great social return on investment being a member of Youth Employment UK, but actually your membership will unlock a huge amount of support from us to help you become an employer of choice for young people. So we provide advice and guidance to our employers. We provide lots of insight and support with a membership dashboard. An example of some of the recent content we've just produced on that is a revised update on safeguarding policy and what is an employer's role in terms of safeguarding for young people bringing into their business, either in work experience or in employment. So some really helpful insight around some of the legal requirements of being an employer of young people. Also all the way through to how to create better job descriptions, more inclusive environments. So lots of advice and guidance about your youth employment activity on the membership dashboard. You also get early access to this year's Youth Voice Census and a membership event at least once a month, either in person or online. So loads of great kind of engagement points too. We share a lot of best practice amongst our members, and I think that's kind of a really important thing to learn from other industries and other sectors. Membership costs depending on the size of your organisation. So the entry cost is £250 a year. The maximum fee for membership to Youth Employment UK is £2,000 per year if you're a corporate large employer. Also, and this is the point that Kelsey wants me to make, part of your membership includes access to our audit tool, which is an audit called the Good Youth Employment Benchmark. And all of our members are able to come onto our website and complete a return of the Good Youth Employment Benchmark. And that will ask you questions about your early careers activity, your work experience activity, and your employment pathways for young people. And when you've completed that set of questions, which takes about an hour and a half, depending on how big your activity is, you'll have produced for you by our Director of Policy and Research and her team a customised report that shows you where you are against our standards and what sort of activities and things you could think about to improve where you are with your early career strategy and develop it for future years. It's a great independent report for your ESG reports and content that you're producing. I will give you a scoring and a benchmark scoring against the sector and against employers of similar sizes. That is only available to complete once a year, and there's a tight window for you to be part of it this year. You'd have to join membership and be ready to complete the benchmark before the 29th of September in order to be able to get a report in 2024. But if not, and if that's too tight a time for you, the benchmark will open again next year. So every year our members get to do that audit and get to track and see and monitor the progress that they are making with the advice and guidance that they can access through their membership with Youth Employment UK. If then an employer wanted to advertise their vacancies with us, just back to that point Kelsey was making, we have an advertising only cost of £500 per year. That's an unlimited vacancy, so you have to become a member, and then an extra £500 admin charge will allow you to post unlimited vacancies to the site. If you want the bigger profiles like Sodexo have and Surrey County Council, there's an additional kind of site building charge for that. But you can talk to me and the team, and I'll put the chat and contact details in the chat function just right now for you. Again, thank you so much, BICSc, for the incredible leadership role you take on the youth employment agenda. It is amazing to work with you. It's an absolute joy. Thank you, team.
Thank you, LJ. And I will say, on the Good Youth Employment Benchmark, we did ours yesterday. We had our meeting yesterday. It was very good. It was quite...
Oh, you'll get brownie points again, Kelsey.
It was, I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see where we were, where we could improve for the future. And also, you know, it's a little pat on the back of like what we've done, which was really good. All I will say to finish up is I always finish, whenever I do anything to do with youth, I always say this quote, that experience isn't what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. And we all have incredible insight in our industry. The only way that we are going to transparently onboard the next generation is to actually utilise our experience as a tool of innovation and the future generation instead of segregation. So obviously by using connections with people like Youth Employment UK and also our own experience, that's the only way that we're going to move forward to welcome the next generation of cleaning professionals. So thank you very much. I'm going to shut up again now and I'm going to go.
Wow, thank you all. That was very informative. We've overrun, as you've probably noticed, and I'm just going to check, do we have any questions from the chat at the moment?
We don't. Most of it has been thank you, great insight, well put together. As a long-term member of the industry, really refreshing to see our industry future leaders showing us what matters to them today. I personally would love to thank you all. This has been, we should have booked longer for this so that we could have had time for questions. If you do have questions, please put them into the chat now. What we will do is we'll email you out with the answer to those questions, or we'll answer them in the chat so you can come back to them later. Personally, thank you, LJ, for your input and your very positive words about BICSc. Very appreciative on that. And thank you for the work you do on the youth employment side as well, and for opening our eyes in particular for us to gain such an amazing youth team. I'd like to thank the youth team as well for everything they do. We have a new member joining us very recently, who no doubt we will see shortly as well. So there is a fifth member to our youth team. So we are very proud to be supporting youth development within BICSc. Thank you all. Sorry we don't have time for questions, but don't miss our next webinar in November.
Thank you. Yeah, next webinar is on the 27th of November at 10:30, where we're going to be talking about BICSc accredited training membership. So look out for posts from our social media team. Thank you all for coming. Goodbye.